Okay, I'm here to talk to you about Ultimate Fantastic Four Volume 2, Doom. This is written by Warren Ellis with art by Stuart Immonen. I think I enjoyed this book a little bit more than Volume 1. I didn't realize that Warren Ellis came on the series so soon after it started. I remembered that he wrote a couple of volumes, but I thought it was a little later. For some reason, I was thinking Bendis and Millar stayed on a little longer than 6 issues, but almost immediately we are changing creative teams with this series. And I feel like maybe that is why I don't hold the Ultimate Fantastic Four series in as high regard as I do some of the other series in the Ultimate Universe. Because whether I love or hate what is going on in any of the other series, I felt like they all had more of a firm identity than Ultimate Fantastic Four. Millar was the writer on Ultimate X-Men for 30-something issues. Then Bendis was a writer on Ultimate Spider-Man for over 100. It was a very long time before he left Ultimate Spider-Man. The Ultimates, it was about 24 issues that Millar was the writer on the Ultimates. But then you get 6 issues into Ultimate Fantastic Four, and we're changing the creative team. Then you go another, I think, 12 issues, and then you're changing the creative team again. And it just doesn't feel like the series was really able to cement itself with a specific vision that would kind of set it apart from other stories in the Ultimate Universe or the other version of the Fantastic Four in the main Marvel Universe. It feels like, okay, we're just going to rotate a whole bunch of creative teams through this series, and then we don't really know what's going on because the writers and the artists don't really know what's going on. They're coming in, they're doing their own thing, and then they're leaving. So I think that might be why, even though some of these stories in the series, they're not bad, I just don't think that I like this series as much because it's hard for me to really get a read on it since the creators are changing so much, and therefore the vision for the series isn't really consistent. So this volume, the pacing is about as bad as Volume 1. Very, very little happened in Volume 1, and I hate to say it, very, very little happens in Volume 2. We spend most of the first issue kind of reestablishing what is the new status quo now that these four have their powers. We find out, okay, they're living at the Baxter Building, they're basically prisoners of the army, they're not allowed to do anything, that Reed tells Ben, the army has orders to shoot us if they think that something crazy is going to happen, and then at the end of that issue we see Victor Von Dame. He looks a lot like he does in the main Marvel Universe. His skin turned metal. It wasn't armor that he can take on and off like in the main Marvel Universe, and he has goat legs for some reason. I don't know why the creators thought that was a good idea here, and he's like, I'm evil now, I'm going to attack you, Reed Richards, and then over the course of the next 2 issues, he sends these little robot mosquitoes to attack the Fantastic Four. Yes, that takes 2 full issues, and part of the second issue in this book is we get to see Warren Ellis talking about how awesome science is. That's something I've always kind of had a problem with Warren Ellis's work. I love Planetary. It's one of my favorite series, but there were 2 issues in that run that there was no conflict, there was no narrative. It was just Elijah Snow learning about quantum physics, and I don't care about quantum physics. Warren Ellis is the reason anytime someone says, isn't science cool, I want to punch them in the face 10,000 times. You have Reed Richards and Sue are examining Reed's body, and she's like, oh, you don't have internal organs anymore. And this is Warren Ellis saying, if these powers existed in real life, how would they work? How does Ben use the bathroom? I don't care. I don't ever want to think about that. I don't need an entire page of Reed asking Ben, how do you go to the bathroom? And Sue asking Reed, if you eat a hamburger and then you stretch really long, where does that hamburger go? I don't know. I just assumed it would stay in the digestive tract, and the digestive tract would just stretch out, but the hamburger would still be there. I don't think it would disappear. But apparently Reed doesn't have internal organs, and we get a whole lot of that. That takes up a lot of the second issue here, and then the mosquitoes attack, and then we get that attack is kind of dealt with in the next issue, and then I'm trying to think. There was that's 3 issues, and then issue 9, they're still dealing with the mosquitoes, and then at the end of that issue, Reed Richards says, hey, I know who attacked us. It was Victor Von Dame. Yeah, no duh. We've known that since the first issue of this book. It is never a good idea for your audience to be ahead of where your character is. If your character is doing any kind of deduction or detection at all, their character should not come to that conclusion well after the audience has. And if you showed us in the first issue of this book that Victor is planning an attack on Reed, Reed, who is a super genius, should not find out 2 issues later. That is absolutely asinine. And then the next issue, Reed says, hey, Victor attacked us. I'm studying this stuff. We want to go and find him so that we can figure out what the codes are, because in the previous volume they wanted to teleport an apple, and Victor, he changed the coordinates before the thing, and then that is why they all got their superpowers. And Reed says if he knows what the codes that Victor entered were, then he will be able to undo this, specifically for someone like Ben, but probably for all of them. Even Johnny, he likes this probably, but he could undo it for all of them if they wanted it. And Victor, he says, we need to get to Victor. And Dr. Storm says, no, the army is not going to let you leave. The army is going to go and get Victor. And then Reed says, understandably, he says, well, the army's not going to let us talk to Victor. They're going to throw him in Guantanamo Bay, and then we'll be stuck like this for the rest of our lives. So pretty much all of issue 10 is Reed talking with Dr. Storm and then talking with the rest of the crew. He introduces them to the Fantastic Car. It spends like 2 pages of Johnny and Ben making fun of the name the Fantastic Car. That joke was funny for like 2 panels. It wasn't funny for 2 pages. And then finally they leave. And then we see Victor saying, come to me, Richards, come and I will kill you. And then I'm feeling like this is something that should have happened at the end of the second issue instead of 4 issues into this book. And then we get 2 issues basically of the Fantastic Four fighting Doctor Doom. And honestly, not a whole lot here to write home about. There are some interesting ideas. I like the idea that Victor, the way that he kind of creates, they don't call it Latveria, but the way that he creates his little kingdom where he is giving people homes basically for free. They don't have to pay for food or water or shelter or anything. And in spoilers, you find out that he is actually going to use these people against his enemies. And I like the idea of him just kind of creating his kingdom, if you will, out of nowhere. I like that idea. It kind of goes away at the end of the volume, spoilers, but I like that idea instead of Latveria just being an existing kingdom and then he takes over, because I don't remember who the original monarch was of Latveria, but Doctor Doom was not the rightful king. He took over in the main Marvel Universe. Here, he basically creates Latveria all on his own. We also find out here that Doom is a descendant of Vlad Tepes, the man who Dracula was based on, and I don't care at all. I don't know why Warren Ellis thought that was something he needed to inject into story. I guess if you think, well, we need to explain Victor's arrogance and why he thinks he's better than everyone else. Okay, you could say that he's descended from an illegitimate line from some king from 400 years ago. I don't know why specifically he has to be descended from Dracula, and it doesn't really do much for the story, in my opinion. Really, I don't have a whole lot to say here. We spend a whole lot of time with the Fantastic Four just kind of hanging out, and then some bugs attack, and then eventually they go to fight Victor, and then it doesn't go their way. They're not able to get the codes from Victor, so now they're seemingly stuck like this. Okay, this does have a little bit more interaction between the four than the previous volume did. The previous volume basically had a little bit of Sue and Reed, like one panel of Johnny talking to Reed and saying, hey, you should go out with my sister, and then you had a little bit of Reed and Ben. This has a little bit of Reed and Ben. This has more of Ben and Johnny, and it's not as hostile as it is in the main Marvel Universe. The main Marvel Universe, some of Johnny's pranks on Ben are just really mean-spirited, and you don't get a whole lot of that here. That's nice. You don't get a whole lot of Johnny and Reed. Mostly it's just when Johnny and Ben are making fun of the Fantastic Car. You don't really get a whole lot of Johnny and Sue. She is worried about him at one point. He gets really hot to destroy some of the bugs, and she's worried about him because he's okay, but his blood sugar is low or something like that. But you don't get as much interactions between all of the possible combinations as you could. We don't get any Sue and Ben. We don't get any, really, any Sue and Johnny, or Johnny and Reed. We don't get any of that, and that's something that I want in a Fantastic Four story. Mark Waid, in his little manifesto he wrote before he started his Fantastic Four run with Mike Wieringo, he said you should have ideas about how any two members of the Fantastic Four will interact with each other, and then that should help you create more stories for your series. And I still don't feel like we're getting that, and this is now 1 full year into the series, and we still don't really know how does the team dynamic work. How does Ben and Sue, what do they think of each other, other than Sue wanting to scan Ben and know how his body works, but what do they do as people? Again, this is the end of issue 12 we get here, and I don't really know how these characters interact with each other, and that's not great. So that's all I have to say about Doom from Ultimate Fantastic Four. I don't have high hopes for the next volume. I don't remember a whole lot of what comes next. I remember Mike Carey writing some of this series, and I am a pretty big fan of his, so I do, fingers crossed that won't disappoint me, it's as good as I vaguely remember it being, but I don't remember who comes after Warren Ellis, if it's Mike Carey, if it's somebody else, but we'll keep going, and I'll see what happens as we get there. So in the meantime, you guys have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.